The Rugby Championship is underway, and tonight, Blues coach Leon MacDonald joins us as we weigh up what the selectors will take away from that Buena Series game. We also discuss Beauden's move north and how that impacts Leon's Blues squad for 2020. Plus, we're at Havelock North with local hero Tom Blake. And later, what combinations will prove pivotal in this weekend's match against the Boks. All ahead on The Breakdown.
Hello and welcome to The Breakdown. Yes, it has been great to be back from Argentina. Yes, we celebrate another win from the All Blacks. We tolerate those whinging Aussies. We look at a Springboks team that was very good at home in their first Test match of 2019. But first, like every show should start this week, we congratulate the Silver Ferns on being world champions once again. What a performance that was. Here is my expert team. They've all been there and done that for the All Blacks. Ali Williams, Christian Cullen, first time on The Breakdown, Leon MacDonald, coach of the Blues. Leon, it's been a couple of weeks, but surely you're still the happiest man in Auckland after Beauden Barrett signs on the dotted line.
Oh, look, it's great news for the club, isn't it, to have a quality player like Beauden come, and I know the experience and the skill set of the guy is going to be really valuable for our group, and you know, one of the things he prides himself on is passing on his experience, so good for the guys around him.
What about you, though?
Well, if you want the real answer from me, it sort of goes a bit like this. I am so stoked the Blues can now win.
It's as simple as
One
that.
man, it's as simple as that. One man and now the Blues can win. And if they don't win, Leon, I'm going to be asking some questions.
Oh, massive pressure on, no pressure whatsoever. And I'm not sure I want to ask you about it, Kelly.
Oh, I'm still gutted, to be fair.
That's why you're sitting next to it.
Yeah,
I think this could get very, very interesting. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on the show. But let's now go to Steph and get all of the news, of course, out of the weekend and what's coming up as well.
Thanks, Jeff. Now, no news yet on Beauden Barrett's potential move next season. We're still going to try and get that out of Leon tonight. But as Jeff said, the Silver Ferns are world champions.
In news this week, Sia Khaleesi will miss the remainder of the Rugby Championship with a knee injury. There are even some doubts looming over the Springbok captain's availability for the World Cup. We are the Netball World Champions, the Silver Ferns winning the final against Australia 52-51. A few All Blacks hot off the plane watched the last few minutes, and even Steve Hansen was on hand to celebrate. Referee Jerome Garces, who officiated the third Lions Test in 2017, has been appointed to ref the All Blacks' first match of the Rugby World Cup against South Africa. Beauden Barrett remains undecided on where he will play Super Rugby next season. Several offers are on the table, but according to sources, the Blues are the frontrunners. They're offering him the opportunity to play his preferred position of second five next to his brother Beauden. And lastly, Damian McKenzie is getting back on his feet and on to brighter things, getting in some R&R, walking the beautiful sunny beaches in the south of France. Surely the local club Montpellier will be taking notice.
That actually looks like what you used to get up to when you were playing over there, Ali. Whole lot of bugger all.
Oh, she's coming strong.
Now the truth comes out.
Oh, look, there was a slight difference. I had a far better body than Damian McKenzie in my peak. And he looked a bit sloppy around the edges, didn't he? He's obviously enjoying the croissants.
South of France. The south of France doesn't sound so bad to me. Great time to recover, a great place to recover in the sun in the Mediterranean. Well, let's focus on the weekend. Let's talk about the All Blacks Test match. It was the first in the Rugby Championship, the first for 2019. It was an inexperienced squad. Cully, I'm going to start with you. You would have watched this game intently, some debutants getting their opportunity. What did you take away from this first test?
Yeah, well, we're actually in the studio watching it for the post show, and well, it was messy, but that's no surprise to me. I think the Argentinians put a lot of pressure on the ABs. A lot of those guys hadn't played a lot of rugby, for 2 or 3 weeks, and they put pressure on. You know, around the ruck, they're just niggly. And we just, I think, couldn't get our game together. Our kicking game in that first sort of 20-30 wasn't the accuracy wasn't there. And I think in the second half, they started to make breaks, but they just couldn't capitalise.
We've all been there, though, Liam. We've all been there. That first test match of the year, finding your feet, getting some continuity, some cohesion to your game is always difficult. And the fact that we lack some experience against a team that had all of Super Rugby, essentially, to prepare.
Yeah, look, I think they just look keen, as you do in your first test. A few passes were pushed and didn't quite happen, and there was frustration. And then, there's little things like the breakdown was a little bit messy, and they got in there, the RGs got in there and disrupted a little bit, and we just never got any flow going. And they'll be better for it. It's a good start, and they got a win, and the win over there is not easy, so they'll be happy with that. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, they got a win, and then I think I like to look at the person like Brodie Retallick. Look, we know he's a natural leader, but then you saw the voice during that game. He was talking all the time. So you made people like him stand up, and he, in terms of a verbal leadership. And, they showed some composure. There were times there when we thought, this game is on pending, the result, and they showed some composure. He gets his, once again, one of the best looking things in world rugby is seeing a lock in open space scoring TR-wise.
Well, what I would say is he looked a little bit leaner to me, and he picked up a wrist injury, and I spoke to the training staff there, and the fact that he hadn't been able to lift, he looked really aerobically fit, hence he was able to go deep into that game. I thought his leadership was key. Sam Cane, to me, though, really stood up, Leon. The fact that he had the responsibility of captaining the All Blacks, it was a physical test match, and he shirked none of his responsibilities.
Yeah, the pack I thought were brutal. They got through a lot of work. They were good at the breakdown. Kane in particular and Savia were menaces there, but they got through a lot of work. Their ball carries were good leg drive, and they'll be really stoked to get through that 80 minutes.
Look, players in this game, Kelly, were selected and given their opportunity to go out and press guys like Vaea Fafita and Patrick Tuipulotu, guys who are competing for World Cup spots. If we talk about a few of those guys, let's start with those two in particular. How difficult a game was it for them to show what they were capable of first and foremost?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's for Vaea, I guess it was tough. I mean, I obviously probably didn't hear his name mentioned too many times. And then I think he got pulled after 55, 60. So as hard as it is for me to say, because I like Vaea as a player, he probably wouldn't have done himself any chances there in that game, just looking at in terms for the World Cup selection. A few mistakes.
But not a game that really suited him, though, was it? The fact we got to see what he's capable of?
Yeah, I agree, but you're still, your opportunities are limited. We all know that. There's only 4 matches till the World Cup. He had to create some X-factor moments. Patrick, I think, was solid, but I don't think he probably potentially said, you can't leave me out. And I think that's probably what the coaches were looking for. What's that moment where you say, can't leave me out, Ring?
Well, look, Paddy's A game is when he's carrying hard, and he probably didn't carry as much as what he would have liked, whether that's the structure they're running or just struggled to get into the game, whatever. But like for Paddy to have an influence in the game is what the All Black selectors want. He's got to get his hands on the ball and get that go forward. For us, his carry percentage was massive. Every time he took the ball over the gain line, he got good go forward.
And it was a tough game to get that sort of momentum and get that go forward. We defended at 93% tackle percentage, so our accuracy was there. It was a defensive-minded game. So is that bit of a possibility of what we're going to face later on in the year? I mean, is that the reality that,
Yeah.
Maybe that's the type of game you need to play to win World Cup matches?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, if you can look at probably the Crusaders, the All Blacks, this hard line D, I think a lot of teams are going to look at how you play against the All Blacks and how you can put them off their game, and that's obviously it, is the rush D, and that puts teams off. And you see the Argentinians, their kicking game was reasonably good, the 50-50 contestable kicks, and they pretty much got every one of those, and then put pressure on. And our kicking game probably wasn't as good, and that's why I probably like, hopefully when Sonny gets back or Laumape, you need guys like that in the midfield, that if you're in trouble, you can give it to them, they can truck it up.
So we talked about Vaea Fafita as one of those congested positions. Ngani Laumape got the first opportunity at 12. Sonny Bill Williams wasn't fit to play. Expect that he will be fit available this week. Did Ngani do himself some favours in this game? Did he show what he can offer the All Black jersey?
Well, you talk about that rush D Kelly's talking about, and you need guys that can use their feet on the line and try and get their arms free. That's why Sonny's in the picture, because if he gets an offload away against a rush D, it's pretty much home and hose. So I thought Nani's work rate was excellent. He was hungry. You see him there. He's first next to the ball, close to the line. He's wanting to get touches, and he had a good night in the office.
In some ways, the second time I looked at this game, and of course it was hard when I was at ground level, I actually thought the performance was probably a little bit better, and we created a lot more opportunities than we probably remember in the game. The nature of the latter part of the second half, we're under pressure, Ali, but they'll take a lot of positives out of this, and they still won.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's an Argentinian squad coming off the back of a Jaguares squad that's been together for the whole year. So you've got to understand the cohesions were slightly different between both sides. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, they're getting the results. They're still getting the results. The All Blacks, we expect them to get them, but they are getting them. And then individuals through those games are stepping up and saying, well, hold on, there is another element to me. I mean, Lamapu, we saw him probably kick a bit more than he normally kicks, but they're showing, you know, a different picture. So I wouldn't, you know, I don't think it's panic stations just yet. We won.
Yeah. There are a number of things, key performances, and the debutants. Let's talk about some of those guys. Sevu Reece got his opportunity. Kelly, what did you make of his impact on the game?
Yeah, well, I think sometimes on the wing you can tend to, in some games the ball doesn't come to you, but I think that point there, because that could have gone to 13-0, if he didn't make a decision, he's a winger, and I think Ben Smith was the one guy outside him, so he had to make a decision there, and it was a pretty good one because he needed to make that tackle to stop that try. But I thought he was busy, he got involved, he made a couple of nice little breaks. Gee, will he play again this week? I'm not too sure. I'd like to see him play again. But I mean, I think he took every opportunity that was given to him, but there wasn't that many.
Luke Jacobson played close to 30 minutes, Ali?
He was solid. I mean, he showed that physicality that we're looking in a 6. He showed the agility and the speed around the park in terms of support. We know what he can do as a ball runner. Defensively, we know what he can do. I think in set pieces, he added another dimension. So to me, for him, I think he was the one that really stood up as a debutant.
I want to talk about the Pumas now and the fact, had Nicolas Sanchez kicked the penalty that he missed, could this have been a different game? Because you're talking the difference between 4 points and 1 point, significantly different, and the fact that I think they missed an opportunity, Leon. I think he kicks that, then all of a sudden the nature of the contest changed because we know they can kick from long range. I think, though, they'd taken Baffelli off, which I think was a mistake. I'm not sure why they took him off. But how critical was that miss in the context of the fact they dominated pretty much the last 15 minutes?
Yeah, I think they'll look back in this game and be frustrated that they didn't get the win. The opportunities were there. And that's why the All Blacks have been so good. You know, the maul right at the end there, they set the maul up and the All Blacks managed to dismantle the maul, you know, and they're a very good mauling team. But, you know, those little moments in the game, the little turnovers, key players, Retallick was in the mix, Severe in the mix, Kane, and they just made it happen. And, you know, Bodie's kicking 4 out of 4. So big test matches are won on goal kicking.
And experience, Brodie Retallick taking it, intercept and scoring. And you talk about the influence they can have on the game. They left a number of significant key players at home. For them to find a win like this, Kelly, in some circumstances you'd say this is a real confidence builder.
Oh, yeah, it is, because I had to dig deeper right at the end there, and you see Brodie, you see him talking and getting into his boys. But just going back to the Argentinians, I think there's a point there where if you play too much rugby against some of these good teams like the All Blacks, and that's what's going to happen. I thought the first 25, 30 minutes they were good. They were kicking the ball, contestable kicks, and when they tried to have a crack, Sanchez throws that intercept. Do you know what I mean? And then you're under the post, and I think that's something that they probably didn't need. They were going well how they were going, I thought.
It's funny as I'm the other way when you play the All Blacks.
I heard you saying.
When Ireland beat the All Blacks, you've got to play. You don't generally beat them by scoring less than 20-odd points, so you've got to find a way to score tries. And it's interesting you go in that sense, because I thought in the first half they didn't threaten us. They missed an opportunity, like you say, when Sevu Reece made that fantastic tackle. I want to talk about now the benefit of experience, though. We're getting closer and closer to the Rugby World Cup, and we saw what the Silver Ferns did with their fossils, their experience, right? And they called them fossils. We did it in the last Rugby World Cup with who? Dan Carter and Richie McCaw, and we thought, oh, we're a little bit old. But you think about all of this talent we've got, Leon, and you combine. Does it really show you the value of experience when you get to the big show?
Yeah, look, I talked about moments and lineouts. You've got Sam Whitelock coming back, you've got Kieran Reid experience. You've got guys that have played huge amount of test matches, and, you know, it can take one call in the line at a critical moment, you know, the right play at the right time. We've got 10s now that, you know, Bodie's played a lot of test matches. Aaron Smith's played a lot. Those critical positions are filled with guys with massive amount of test matches, and they're critical.
And Joe Moody and Owen Franks, Ali, you know, it's easy to look at that Super Rugby form, that excitement that we saw. Not to say some of these guys didn't perform really well. I thought the front row was very, very good. But you cannot substitute for test matches under the belt. And the nature of this game meant that I think maybe that experience was missed.
You don't need to be a rocket scientist to look at what teams have done well in World Cup events, regardless of what sport it is, wherever. You just go down the rugby channel, you know, when England won in 2003, they had an old team. 2007. All those teams that have won, they've got old teams. Why? Because it doesn't fluster you as much. As an older player, you don't get so beaten up in your head around the little things, e.g., oh, what happens if we drop this? You think, well, this is the process driven, I'll take care of that, the outcome will take care of itself if I just focus on the small things. Experience counts for everything in a year like this.
And the ability then to deliver your game plan. There were question marks going in how we would deal with the pressure. Leon, if you look at some of the mistakes and errors we were making, are we still searching for a way to penetrate against good defensive sides?
Oh, look, there wasn't not a lot of time to prepare for the test and the new combinations. I wouldn't be too fussed around. The cohesion will come. They know that. There's a lot of guys that have played a lot of rugby together. I just felt it was they just forced it a little bit. They're just looking to get the game going, and they'll review this loss. This game like a little bit like a loss, I think. They'll be frustrated that they let the team in at the breakdown, and some of the exit plays weren't great, but they're all very fixable, and the players will be all over it.
But in saying that, though, they've got to come together with another group, Kelly. It's not the same group. There'll be selection changes as well. Any concerns in the fact that you're going to have to make that transition in a short period of time, a 7-day turnaround?
No, I mean, I think the review would have been much, much different if those experienced players were in Argentina and they perform like that. So I've got no worries at all about this new group. Obviously, Hansen said the other day 300 or 400 test caps are coming into the mix, so that's just going to help it.
Well, for the All Blacks on the weekend, there are a number of players. Debutants have got their opportunity, and All Black number 1183, Luke Jacobson, got his. It's been a fantastic 2019. It started with the Chiefs, and it's been one great rugby journey.
I like to base my game around having physical presence. I feel as if it's something that you can always bring non-negotiably.
Lots of oohs and ahs from the crowd.
Whether you're dropping balls or throwing dusty passes, you can always front up physically.
Jacobson trying to bust his way over, he's got there!
So I grew up in Cambridge, just 30 minutes drive from Hamilton. I just played for my first 15 at Cambridge. I only played year 12 and year 13, first 15. Cambridge isn't probably the strongest rugby school, but we all definitely got in behind it. Like, there's a lot of passion behind the school.
Lovely ball out the back to Jacobson, the captain.
My first year in the black jersey, I went to Manchester, which is pretty cool because my brother was in the team at the time.
Jacobson goes on the charge. Jacobson!
And then second time, 2017, when it was in Georgia, which is when we won it. I made some pretty good friendships there, pretty special memories.
It's 6 of the best for the Baby Blacks.
My first year Super Rugby was last year. I managed to get my first game against the Blues. So I was 24th man and I wasn't really expecting it. I was sort of like, oh, I'm not playing. And then one of our backs went down in the warm-up. So I was like, all right, geez, I'm going to switch on here.
And taking it off the back was Jacobson. Took some stopping too.
It's awesome to be able to run out for the region that I grew up in. It's always been the team that I've followed and it's been the team that I've supported. So pull on Chiefs jersey was pretty special for me.
Charlie Natai, picked up by Talbot, and Jacobson's in! Jacobson, who has been a standout for the Chiefs over the last couple of weeks.
I was learning lots off Brody Retallick, Sam Cairns and Liam Messam, which was just pretty awesome to be around, let alone play alongside. Being from Waikato and Chiefs region, Liam Messam was one of my idols growing up.
It's intercepted, tearing away as Liam Messam.
Just the presence he brings to the field, and then his attacking game, he was always pretty razzly and he could always break open the defence, which would be something pretty cool to have. It's not something I quite have, but it's something to aim for.
There for Christie. Nice ball away from Eves or Lossie, and Jacobson is hurt by that. Absolutely stunned.
They need to get to him quickly.
Never really been cussed before. That was my first time. I didn't really think too much of it, even though it was pretty hefty whack. I was sort of thinking I was going to be back in a couple of weeks or even the next weekend, but it ended up dragging on. I think it was 8 months till I got back out playing again. It takes a bit of a toll when you just can't, let alone having rugby there, thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to be back this weekend, and then keep getting pushed back, but then also just not being able to go out on the weekends and hang out with your mates. But I think I've grown a bit from it, learned a bit of patience. Bloody happy to be back out here with no headaches, that's for sure. And my first game back was against Hurricanes.
Jacobson still going. A real reward for perseverance.
I've been pretty happy with what I've been able to put out there. I feel as if I'm getting more confident to just have a crack and try things.
Jacobson, oh, what a ball!
Not being scared of, oh, what if I stuff up?
And the arm goes out, but he'll play on, and he gives it to Jacobson, and Jacobson makes it 4.
It's definitely never the finished product. I've still got a lot of things to work at. I've been put into 8. I'm pretty keen to try and grow my skill set there as well, which is a little bit of a different thing at the back of the scrum.
Picked up by Talbot, and Jacobson's in.
I'd just like to keep locking down a starting spot at the Chiefs and hopefully keep going out there and performing. Making the All Blacks would obviously be one of my huge goals. I'm not sure if it'll come or when it'll come, but it's just something I'm just got to keep working away at and keep improving my game so I can put myself in the best position to hopefully have a crack at that.
An impressive first 30 minutes in the All Black jersey. Didn't get many opportunities to carry the ball, but defensively very, very strong. He can be proud of his first outing in Argentina for the All Blacks. Let's change our attention now to the first game of the Rugby Championship, and it was the Wallabies taking on the Springboks. This was in Johannesburg, and a fascinating contest here because you had a very young Springboks team taking on a Wallabies side that... Look, I'm interested in some of their selections. I'll say that for the fact Will Guinea and Kurtley Beale coming off the bench. But let's focus firstly on the Springboks. How impressed were we? Well, you, Cully, I'll start with you. The fact this performance of this young team, given they've sent all of their experience to Wellington prepared for the All Blacks. Yeah,
I think they are a worry. They are a worry for 6-7 weeks' time because they've got a lot of depth now. You know, as you said, they've sent a lot of blokes out here, some of their key players out here already, and. Yeah, I mean, that last 30 minutes in that game, they put that Wallaby side to the sword. But they're always going to be big, strong, physical. They've got the skills in the backs now. I mean, the young guys are standing up, which is a worry for us because I think they're going to be really strong come World Cup.
Leon Herschel Yankees. Who'd heard of him? I think he's played maybe 18, 19, 20 games for the Stormers, and he comes out and puts on a performance like this against this team.
They're playing with a lot of confidence, aren't they? They you know, it's coming through their Super Rugby as well. They're using the ball a lot more. You know, all the teams are. They're trying to play more rugby, and he's another little live wire 9 at the back of a ruck, and he's looking to probe all the time, and he's dangerous.
I mean, he's a young player for me that you just, when you don't know a lot about them, that he surprised me, but he just looked as though he was comfortable, Ellie, at this level against a good Wallaby side.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that. I think, you know, Rassie, the coach there, he's given a group of young guys a lot of confidence. And then we talked about experience before. The counter-argument is when you've got youth, they come with sort of no fear. But if you can install confidence with a bit of sort of discipline and, I don't know, composure about how they execute that youthfulness, then they're dangerous. And we saw that. You know, those guys went out there to just do what they do and show Rassie what they could do if they were put in that position, considering that they're a youthful side and, you know, the old boys are over here.
And the same situation for all of their players, Cully. They're competing to get on a plane to go to the World Cup. We shouldn't forget that. Every team is in a situation, they'll have a wider squad going, you know what, we've got to toss up here and we need to find out who can perform at that next level.
Yeah, well, it's about taking the opportunities, isn't it? So the guys that start this week have got another chance. But, I mean, yeah, I just like how they've gone that way, you know, that the smaller halfback, the nippy, because obviously they're big boys that are going forward and they, like a Faf de Klerk, you know, just getting in there, clearing the ball, speedy around the ruck, puts pressure on. I think it's great. I think it's great that they've elevated their game again.
They're playing with a tempo that we probably don't associate to South African rugby.
Well, they did it to us twice last year.
They're speeding it up, which is dangerous, as you say. It gives us a different picture. We're sitting there going, this is not the South Africa we're used to, and they're starting to play with tempo. You're like, whoa, dangerous.
Then I'll be interested to see whether or not they try and replicate that in Wellington. Look, this wasn't a game without controversy, though. A couple of yellow cards in this one, and the midfielder, Esterhuizen, he saw a yellow for this. And I don't think you can argue with this. We know the seatbelt tackle, it looks ugly, doesn't look right. He goes into the bin, but South Africa, they handle it. It was this one here. This is Taniela Tupou, who comes off, and I don't know if you guys have seen it and watched it a number of times. This is after the whistle, the contact. I mean, how do we see that? Let's start with you, Leon. How do you see that in your eyes? As a coach, if you're sitting in a box and you see that contact?
Yeah, that's a tough one because this is safety. Now, the game's heading that way, you know, like we want to look after our players and make sure that kids are safe. And any time that a player's on his own flying in like that, it just doesn't look right. They had the luxury of going upstairs and checking, and it didn't look particularly dangerous to me, but you're always going to roll the dice when you come in hard like that and you get horizontal and, you know, the head's in the picture there somewhere, the referee's going to be involved.
Steph's going to tell us now how the Wallabies reacted to this result, Steph, and Michael Cheika did not take this well.
No, he clearly wasn't too impressed with the decision made by the ref. Here's what he had to say at their press conference.
Yeah, I make it as the wrong call. The other guy should have been sent in the sin bin. He went, the fourth official said he focused on the green player who came in with a shoulder charge. I don't know who it was. And then Taniela came in after that to get him with his arms wrapped at the right height. So I'm not sure if just big contact is a penalty these days, but that's a wrong decision.
Yeah, and not only that, but commentator Phil Kearns was clearly shocked at the decision as well, saying that it was a disgraceful decision. So many times we put referees that are out of their depth into these games. We've all talked privately about the World Cup referees, and there's a whole bunch of guys there that are totally out of their depth. And in big games like that, that's a game-changing moment. It was late, but it was a legitimate clean-out, and I could understand a penalty. Jeez, tell us what you really think, Phil. Now, I don't know about you guys, but to me that just seems like just some more whinging from the Aussies, really.
Steph, I'm on this as well. I'm with you. The fact I'm a little bit sick and tired of it. I'm a little bit sick of the hearing from Phil Kearns. He complained about the Hawaru's in Super Rugby because the Australian teams were rubbish once again. How about they just... I think for me, Elliot, it's just time for them to step up and front up and actually just focus on winning rugby.
They're just so good for rugby, aren't they? I mean, you've got your head coach who's a goon just talking about what should have been. You know, like, it's ridiculous. If they focus more on what they want to do on the field, I think they'd be a better side. I do agree with them slightly. I mean, let's get some physicality back in the game. Let's, you know, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, hook into it. And, you know, I just wonder where their attention is at. They've had so many off-field things. I wonder where the attention is at in terms of a team and a country.
Well, they're going to have to respond this week because they're taking on the Pumas. And I think as a Pumas team, will look at an opportunity, at this as an opportunity for them to win Test match rugby. Well, stay with us. Plenty more for us to talk about after the break. We're going to talk about the Blues and we're going to talk about the New Zealand Maori as well. We'll speak to you soon. Stay with us.
Tom is a man who loves rugby, and when I say loves rugby, the passion just runs deep.
You can't sort of talk about Havelock North Rugby without talking about Tom Blake. He's club president, he's been club captain, he's coached the Prems, managed the Prems, coached the Colts. He's down at 12 o'clock setting up the fields, he's here on Friday nights making sure everything's ready to go, and so he's definitely a local hero.
I look at Tom Blake as the glue of the club. See, on a Saturday morning, he's down here setting up fields, making sure the changing rooms are ready for the opposition, making sure the team's gear is ready, making sure everyone gets to the game on time, you know, making sure the bar staff are happy.
Everything he does, he just goes the extra mile no matter what it is, whether it's rugby, of course, down here at the park.
Let's go, Village! I've been very lucky and an honour, I guess, and proud to have coached so many teams within the club, and lucky enough to be championship winners. Our Colts team, our women's team, our Premier Madison winning side. In again, nice, good boy.
Tom's involvement with rugby is not just this rugby club. Tom is a school teacher. He always makes sure that everybody else is doing okay before his own needs. He's just amazing.
I'll be walking with him in a supermarket or in a shop and he'll get stopped every second and I have to wait there. He's just got a lot of knowledge and wisdom.
Oh, round the neck, straight over.
Without guys like Dad, this club wouldn't be running, and so you feel that when you run out on a Saturday playing for the team, and you just feel that when you're in the club rooms after a real family, tight-knit community club.
The players that he's coached and been involved with over the years, they've always come back to him and tell him how grateful they've been for the part he's played in their rugby career, and it makes him really proud.
Lucky enough to be involved with players that have gone on and represented the country. Three that I'd like to mention, and that's Hika Elliott, the first one, and two special ones in the Evans boys, Bryn Evans and Gareth Evans. Very special, because especially with Gareth, because I coached him as a 5-year-old as well. So yeah, just very, very honoured.
Everyone knows that when you come to the Havelock North Rugby Club and it's speech time, that Tom is going to entertain you and he's going to make you laugh.
Turn up on a Saturday and I'll share a drink with you. You'll be buying, of course. Now this guy here played his first ever Premier game against Ladies and gentlemen, give them a round of applause. I'm lucky enough with a partner like Fiona and my 2 kids, Adam and Ashley, and they know that rugby is my passion, so walking out the door, they know where I'm going. They know what time I'm going to be home. You just do what you do when you're just so passionate about something, and my passion is rugby.
Don't forget, we want your stories, localheroes@sky.co.nz. Talking to the grassroots game, our kick-off, our Thursday night show is on the road once again. It's at the Paniki Rugby Club in Wellington. Get down there and heckle those guys, will you? Get into them. Challenge them on everything they're saying about the game coming up on the weekend. Well, we've got them in studio. We've finally locked them down. Let's talk about the Blues. Let's talk to their coach. Let's talk about the review first and foremost. A difficult season. You probably didn't achieve what you wanted to achieve, Leon. What have you found out about yourselves, probably in the last month after you've looked back at the season?
Yeah, it's been a thorough review. We were a bit disappointed with the way the season finished. We were set up there at the end there to push into the playoffs, and it didn't happen for us. So that's always disappointing. But the exciting thing for us is, there's opportunity now to keep rebuilding our squad the way we wanted as coaches. We understand the players we've got better, and as a coaching group, we came together for the first time. So now we really understand how we were going to work together, and we're really excited about next year.
You and you coming into this challenge, you would have done your research, you would have looked into the background. Was it what you expected in terms of everything surrounding the game in Auckland? And have you managed to find a way, I suppose, to try and bring it all together?
Oh, yes and no. You're sort of going with your eyes wide open, but things aren't always as you expect. But it's part of the challenge. It's an exciting challenge. There's a group of really motivated young men, young players that are desperate to get this Blues team to the top. And that's if you've got that and that as a group, you're halfway there. So we're really excited about that, and we've got some good young leaders that are growing into this leadership role, and they're really keen to sink their teeth into that and become good leaders and help take this team as well. So there's a lot to be looking forward to.
A significant leader, though, you have signed on board. Let's talk about how that played out for you, that the signing of Beauden Barrett, when the discussions sort of started to happen, and how optimistic through the process were you were going to be able to get him across the line?
Oh, these sort of deals don't happen every day, Like, I'm not sure the last time one of this magnitude did happen in Super Rugby between teams. Maybe Ali Williams was one when he went to the Crusaders,
I think they were letting him go. I think they were pushing him out the door, but let's not change the subject.
Ray, you're a champion, mate.
It was kept pretty close between, Bodie. He's a pretty passionate Canes man. We understand that, it was a tough decision for him to leave, but it was the right decision for his family. And we talked at length with him around the opportunity with the Blues and what we're trying to do here. And he heard what we're trying to do, and that was exciting for him as well. So one door closes, another one opens, and we're very thankful to have a guy of his calibre.
Carly, I've got to ask you about this. This is a game changer, though. Let's talk a bigger picture in terms of play of movement. We're talking about a World Rugby Player of the Year in New Zealand deciding to go and shift. And is that maybe just a bit different mentality of the modern athlete as well now? You see it overseas all the time, the trading of athletes, and they're going for different reasons. Do you think maybe this opens a door maybe for other players to consider what they do?
It's been done before. You look at Beauden, you think he's a Hurricanes man through and through, but, Martin Onu, obviously he was kind of, but he did it. Tana came back and he went to another franchise. He was a Hurricanes man through and through. So it does happen, but obviously, as Leon said, this is quite a big one. He's player of the year. So I think it's on the cards now. There are certain players I think that won't ever leave their franchises. I think they'll stay there till the day they have to go overseas.
You've got to look at this from a New Zealand rugby point of view, not just a Blues Hurricane point of view. Isn't it quite exciting that players will now say, well, I'll stay in New Zealand, look for different opportunities within different franchises? And I look at Leon and say, well, great that you've signed him, but where does he look at it? We all know what he produces at the rugby field, but off the rugby field, for me, is the excitement of what he's going to bring to Auckland, what he's going to bring to the Blues region, and also what he wants to put back on New Zealand rugby in terms of how he can change a team as an individual to say, this is what the legacy I want to do. And was he attracted to creating a legacy within the Blues?
Yeah, look, it was an exciting opportunity. He did see that. You know, he played against the Blues this year, and he you know, he felt you know, there was some good things coming out of the game. He you know, he liked what he was hearing, he liked what he was seeing. So the rugby decision fitted, you know, for him. Although it was a tough one to leave the Canes, he did feel that the Blues could still offer him that pathway through the All Blacks and sort of fulfil the Super Rugby need that he needed. So let's be honest, no team's one-on-one person. He's not going to come in and change everything. It's important that the whole group continue to keep developing, and they are, and they're committed to that. But he will add value, especially in the leadership role. And you know, he's going to be away for a big part of the first season initially. So there's still opportunity to keep developing, you know, players underneath him, and when he comes back, he can keep adding to that.
When is your expectation to see him next season?
Oh, look, that's not set in stone, but, you know, like we won't be seeing him until April-ish. So, you know, he's got a sabbatical and he'll go and take that break. And, you know, we've got good players ready to go in his, you know, wise away.
If you don't know where he is, you want to go on his Instagram account. It normally gives them pretty good feedback. He's either Fiji, he's over in Europe. So just go on Instagram, you'll find out where he is. He's bloody good at it.
Well, there's another stuff. I've got to ask you this, though. It's in the media. Everyone's talking about it right now. He's got a brother who's not a bad footballer as well. And are you guys in the market? Is that a discussion you've had? Have you gone to Beauden Barrett's agent and said, tell you what, just signed your brother, you know, the combination here at the Blues might work quite well for you?
Yeah, look, we wouldn't be doing our job if we weren't in those conversations. Any player of his calibre that come up, you know, we've got to be a part of that. And obviously, Geordie's looking at his options as well. But, you know, again, the decision's out of our hands. You know, we'll push our case like every other team in New Zealand is, and you know, that's his decision to make.
I can take it from here, Rangi. He is very, very close to signing with the Blues. We're just working out final details. Also, Scotty Barrett, I'll give you a ring next week. I think there's a possibility to come up to the Blues. It's going to be called the Blues Barrett Blues, Blues Barretts. We're going to change the bus lanes to the Barrett lanes, and we're going to get a championship.
You've thought this through.
Oh, have I? What? This is amazing.
You have thought this through.
I'm loving this. I'm loving it. You're a legend, Rangi.
It does change, though, doesn't it, Kelly? The course of the Blues. When you bring in someone with that talent level, it is a lot of pressure on him, though, isn't it, though, with this opportunity and coming up here, knowing that this has not been a difficult place, or easy place to play, sorry. Yeah,
obviously there'll be pressure on him. But I think he's been around long enough to know that, as Rangi said, it's not going to be all on him. Obviously, you need whatever, you've got 30, 38 odd blokes in your squad and your wider training group, so it's going to be everybody that has to play their part. Beaudy's not going to come here and change the way things are done. I think everyone has to buy into that. I guess the one thing I wanted to ask Rangi is, Beaudy's obviously a 10, but you've got Perifeta, you've got Oteri Black and you've got Plummer. I mean, if those guys have played great in the first 3 or 4 months and then Beaudy comes back, how do you juggle that sort of scenario?
And how did that conversation go when you know, saying to them, look, we've managed to secure Beauden Barrett? Because I'm sure Oteri Black was thinking, didn't I just leave him in Wellington? I mean, how difficult was that conversation?
Yeah, look, it affects any signing like that affects players. There's no doubt about it. You know, Stevie's a multi-skilled player. He plays fullback, 10. You know, Harry Plummer's a good young 10, 12, you know, so there's still opportunity to play alongside. And Beaudy's got his, you know, his clauses in there as well. So Oates is a specialist 10. He finished our season as our number 1, playing good rugby for the Māoris. We saw him have an outstanding performance for the Māoris in the weekend. You know, in the first year, there's still opportunities while Beaudy's away for him to really clock up some good minutes.
Yeah, talked about Oteri Black. We shouldn't forget about him as well. He was coming back off of a significant injury. Those are not easy, and Stephen Perifeta's in the same position. Ended up missing the whole of the season for you. You start talking about your squad then, and you're going to go in with a number of players who've got the ability to play in a few positions, but have you got opportunities for others? Is your roster still got some filling out to do at this stage?
Yeah, it's a busy time for us. You know, the start of the Mighty 10 Cup, you know, we've got to be right on, you know, who's out there and be watching them like a hawk, like all the teams are. So, yeah, we've got some spots to fill as all the super teams, and we want to make sure we get the pick of them.
The exciting thing for me is the leadership in terms of how can you create a leadership group that really takes control of it, because we saw in patches you had a leadership group on field that were making decisions and they were changing the face of the game. You look now, and I look at Beauden Barrett coming into the team, they can sit in a leadership meeting and go, Beauden's there and he supports my decision. For me, the exciting part is how you create a nucleus of leaders around a proven leader in Beauden, but not put the pressure on Beauden to be that person. You're putting the pressure on the other groups to say, hold on, this is my team, you're going to add to us rather than we're going to follow you. And I think that, to me, is the key, and that's the exciting part for the Blues as a region when you sign someone like that as a faithful Bluesman.
On the back of that, and I'd like to just quickly get your thoughts before we move on to the New Zealand Maori versus Fiji around a number of young players that really have started to develop, and there were some players who didn't play a lot for you. Carlton Nukuafe didn't play a lot for you. Sonny Bill didn't play a lot for you this year. Where's Sonny Bill at right now in terms of his future?
I know Sonny. I know what he will be doing is he'll be working really hard. You know, like he's pretty passionate about this this black jersey and opportunity with the World Cup. So he'll be doing everything in his power to push his case forward. Hopefully, he gets an opportunity maybe this weekend or in the upcoming weeks to get out on that field. I know he's been pretty hungry. He's played a little bit of club rugby, and you know the guy's got an amazing work ethic. So.
I mean, how important was he for your season? Even though he wasn't able to play, we were hearing this all the time, but it seems as though he does. And he cares about the role that he has in the team if it's not out on the field.
Yeah, he's a great person, you know, like he's just a genuine good man, and his, you know, his ability to connect with young Polynesian boys, young players. He's insightful. He's been around. He's been through a lot as a player and a person, and he's a calming influencer around our group. So he was definitely invaluable. It would have been nice to see him play a little bit more, but it wasn't through lack of want from him. It was just you know, him trying to manage his body.
Are you hoping to see him again next year?
Yeah, he's keeping that pretty close to his chest, his future. I think we're all waiting to see what he does. I don't think he really knows. I think he's got a focus of the World Cup. It's been a big goal of his, and you know, I think we'd all like to see him go and play well in the World Cup for the All Blacks.
I think all of us just like to see him play now. I mean, it's one of those things that we know his talent level. We know how good he can be. Well, you talk about talent. There was no shortage of talent on the weekend, and it wasn't at an international level in the Rugby Championship. New Zealand Maori took on the Fijians in Rotorua. This was a bounce-back performance for them, Kelly. The New Zealand Maori played very, very well. They needed this, but they had a lot of guys stand up after the disappointment in Fiji. What did you make of this performance coming home?
Yeah, it was a complete contrast, wasn't it, I suppose? It's like you go to Fiji at 30-odd degrees, it's quite hot. You're playing against the crowd and the hard grounds, and you go to Rotorua where it's 5 degrees and she's a bit different. But yeah, they needed the front, and I thought they did. But I mean, I take my hat off to Fiji as well, because they rested a few players for this game, and they're obviously building for the World Cup as well. And man, they've got a pretty good pool, that World Cup. You know, there's Aussie and Wales in there, and then a couple of other teams they can beat, so they could possibly nip a second spot and possibly imagine that.
Topping the Aussies. Of course they'll do that, mate. Of course they'll do that. The physicality they're bringing, you know, it's structured physicality too in certain elements, and then it's not jeopardising their traditional game, which is the flair and, you know, and that flamboyantness. You know, if you look at that scrum, they walked all over the All Blacks, and they needed it too at that stage. The game was sort of slipping away, and the set piece really kicked in.
They're a talent base of players. You look at those two teams, and you can understand why teams around the world are looking at recruiting their talent. How dangerous, Leon, do you see them at this Rugby World Cup? Because what I saw, particularly at home, was near on impossible to stop once they get their continuity going.
Yeah, the Maori All Blacks let them run a little bit, didn't they, in Fiji? And they paid the price big time. I thought their defence was way better in the second game in Rotorua. They got up and shut down their space because they're so dangerous. But they were cunning, you know. They were picking, going around the edges, and you know, the way they manipulated the defence was pretty impressive. So, you know, there'll be some nervous teams in the World Cup.
Yeah, I think if you're the Wallabies or Wales, and I don't think you can rule them out. I don't think you can take them lightly. I think they're going in incredibly well prepared. They've got good coaching structures there. If we talk about the performance of the New Zealand Maori, Whetu Douglas was outstanding for the Crusaders. Here's a guy, I look at his performances throughout Super Rugby, Ellie, and you look at the way he's played in this game in particular, he wouldn't look that bad at the next level, at the international stage.
He is an unsung hero at such a young age. I mean, you look at what he did to the Crusaders. He played consistent game time. He was always out there. You never see a bad performance. You very rarely see a drop ball or something like that. And his work rate is outstanding. I wouldn't be surprised if he's permanently wearing the number 8 jersey next year.
We shouldn't forget, he was the guy that kept Jordan Taufua out of the starting lineup for the Crusaders, who last year was a potential All Black if it not been for injury. So once again, we talk about this depth we seem to find. here's a guy that Scott Robertson's obviously put faith in, and you're starting to see some real talent from.
I think it's great. There's only one way you can go when you're playing around All Blacks, especially down the Crusader land. I mean, there is a case where you could possibly get lost, you know, when there's the Whitelocks, the Barretts, you know, the front rows are All Black. Like it's, but he stood up. He's tough. Man, he must be learning so much when you're around, you know, experienced players, you know, like the Crusaders, and he's shown it now.
Yeah, no, it was impressive. It was great to see him lead from the front and carry on his fantastic form. Well, the game was played in Rotorua, which you'd have to say is a bit of the spiritual home of the New Zealand Māoris, and as always, they are well and truly connected to the community.
We're here in Rotorua. We're at the local event centre. We've got a school holiday program for a whole lot of kids. I think there's 70, 80 kids here. There's some good skills, some good footwork, and it's awesome to be here and help them out.
We're just spreading the love and getting around the tamariki. They're just learning some of the little skills around rugby and heaps of energy around here.
And if we can pass on any tips or knowledge from our experiences, then we're more than happy to do that.
I learned passing and dodging people.
I remember when I was their age and looking up to Maori All Blacks, I used to be in awe and be like, wow, I wish I could do that. So hopefully they can sort of see us and get a bit of inspiration or something like that, and hope to one day sort of rise to be professional rugby players, because, you know, it's pretty special.
It's my first time I've ever seen them in person. Yeah, that was fun.
I was just thinking some of them could probably throw on a jersey tomorrow and field with us.
I went to their training yesterday. They were savage.
Yeah, ultimately, if we're wearing, you know, this Maori All Blacks jersey, you know, if they, you know, one day can be doing that, then we've done our job.
Yes, welcome back. Well, big test match coming up this weekend in Wellington. The All Blacks taking on the Springboks. Remembering the Springboks came in there last year and they won in a fantastic contest. I asked the guys what they would like to see this weekend after what they saw last weekend. Cully, you can go first.
Okay, well, we liked his try-scoring abilities through the Super Rugby and his defensive abilities. We've seen some massive hits, and I'd like to see Sevu Reece get another crack on the wing. I mean, he showed tiny glimpses of what he can do, and he obviously made a great decision in coming in and snuffing out one of their tries with a big hit. So will he get another crack? I mean, there's a few guys, Bridge and obviously Rico will start. What will they do in the back three? It's going to be a big decision for the selectors.
Yeah, I think he looked comfortable. That was what I liked about it. When I spoke to him afterwards, he didn't know what to expect, and afterwards he had a good handle on, OK, that's the speed and expectation of the game. All right, Leon, for you this weekend.
Oh, look, I think it's an exciting year around the World Cup, and I think it's really important that the All Blacks keep moving forward with their attacking game. It was a bit disjointed in the weekend. Passes not going to hand, going to ground, just not quite finding their targets. Their kicking game was a bit off, so it's important that they start growing that attacking game. I'd love to see the ball, you know, build some phases and get their shape going, because I've heard that there's some changes around their shape for the World Cup. I'd love to see what that looks like, and you know, string some phases together and see if they can pick apart, you know, a very good South African defensive wall.
Do you think the South Africans will defend the same, and what adjustments would you expect the All Blacks to make?
Oh, look, I don't think there'll be big changes. It'll just be more accurate at what they're doing. So, look, they'll defend the same. They'll bring line speed, they'll bring physicality, and it's what we're going to get at the World Cup.
I want to see selection changes. Well, I just want to see the combination. I think a lot of people are talking about whether or not we can find room in the starting back row for Ardie Savea, Kieran Reid and Sam Cane. And that ability for Kieran Reid, whether he starts at 8 or 6, the expectation may be to use Ardie Savea off the back of the scrum. We know the impact Kieran Reid is going to have through his leadership, his work rate, at line-out time. He's going to be very, very strong defensively. I'd just like to see how these three can work in tandem and whether it would work, because it was very, very good on the weekend. So I don't think we'll lose anything through leadership at all. We'll gain so much because we've got guys in such great form. And Ardie Savea, for me, I think he just needs to be out on the field. He needs to start. But I'm not a selector. That's up to them. And Ali, for you?
I want to see what you see as well. But also I think I want to see the bench, how we utilise the bench, especially in the front row, tight forwards. We look at Angus Ta'avao and Ofa Tuangafasi. They played in the weekend.
How good was he, Ofa?
Unbelievable. Their energy, their ability to get up for such a big man is huge. Then you got sort of Nipo, Lalale came off the bench. I want to keep seeing that energy off the bench, especially in the tight forwards and especially in the front row, because it's a whole game. They all play now, isn't it? You've got to use them, Rangi. You know better than most. You've got to use your tight forwards in a sort of rotational type of manner through the whole game. So the energy for me is huge.
And we'll have a lot more experience, I would imagine, on the bench. I'm interested to see how much risk they are prepared to take in this Test match, knowing what everyone's talking about. That's the first game of this year's Rugby World Cup pool game for us. Let's go back to Steph with our notice board.
Thanks, Jeff. On the notice board this week, we've just got some updates from the club finals over the weekend. So the Auckland final, firstly, Ponsonby came out on top 27 against Marist 24. Shut up! God. In the Harbour competition, East Coast Bays again just coming out on top over Northcote 21-17. In the counties competition, Bombay 33, Ardmore Marist 18. And finally in the Hawke's Bay competition, Napier Old Boys Marist too good for Hastings 43-24. And of course this weekend, Wellington, Canterbury and Otago all have their finals. So good luck to everyone playing in this weekend's finals. And as Jeff said earlier, kick-off is on the road again this week, coming to you live from Pornicky Rugby Club in Wellington.
And it was Damien McKenzie who was in Montpellier. Where are you going, Steph, next week?
Fiji.
You're going
Had
to Fiji.
Lot.
Enjoy the sun. Enjoy your week off. Fantastic. Don't forget as well, the build-up to the Test match on the weekend starts at 6:30 from Wellington. Thanks very much, Ali. Thanks very much, Leon MacDonald, for the first time on the breakdown. Look forward to doing it again. Cully, as always, looking forward to seeing you in Wellington. Test match time. We will see you, the Springboks in Wellington. See you next week.